Hello, today is March 11th, 2013, and I thought I'd better give a little bit of an update of what's going on. Sorry about the echo. It's kind of windy, and so I'm in a little area that kind of protects me from the wind here, and hopefully the microphone. Now, the other day I mentioned something about 10th Special Forces going to Utah. I wanted to explain a little bit more about that. I did some research, found out what was actually going on. That drill is what it was actually refused by the people in those central Utah communities, and wisely so. What they were going to conduct was a thing called a Robin Sage exercise. And for Special Forces, this is infiltrating communities and trying to win them over to U.S. policies, okay? Whether foreign or even a domestic situation. Technically not a domestic situation, but they're training here, and that's, of course, with the things that we talked about before, that's definitely a possibility. Now, they did one of these back in North Carolina, and not everybody got the word. And the Special Forces people actually shot and killed a county sheriff who didn't know that it was an exercise, and I think a second one was wounded. So when they made this plan to do this drill in central Utah, the central Utah community said no, and wisely so. They don't trust the government. Now, what are these infiltration exercises about? Well, again, like I said, they're about winning over the local populace. Okay, it's a propaganda thing. However, one of the things that happens is after this drill, or even during the drill, other Army units will come in there in plain clothes. They're usually Delta Force people, and actually get those towns to do more into submitting to military plans. Remember I told you the other day about Tucson, that the Tucson City Council had a resolution to cede over their authority to the commander of Montan Air Force Base? Very similar, okay? And there are more things than that. Spy programs, tattling on your neighbors, all kinds of things. It's all part of winning the hearts and minds. And the people of Utah were wise to say no to this. At least at this stage, they know what's going on. The next stage, they may not. So I wanted to kind of give you an update on what that was all about. I did follow through, okay? Now, the big thing in the news right now, of course, is the situation with North Korea. It's refused the old armistice from the 1950s. In other words, they're saying, we're back at war with you. A state of war now exists between North Korea, South Korea, the United Nations, and specifically, of course, the United States. Now, as I've said before, North Korea, they have a good-sized army, but they're really not well equipped. All right. Now, China could change that if they chose to. As I told you, North Korea is the bastard stepchild of China. They don't really want to hang on to this, but they're kind of stuck with it. And it is kind of like the front line of defense. As I mentioned the other day, when the United States was in the Cold War with Russia, and we had units along the Fulda Gap in Germany, the Russians weren't going to send their crack troops through there to get mowed down right away. They were going to send out their Bulgarians and their Romanians and their Czechs and those people that weren't as well equipped as the Soviet army, get chopped up, chew up the Allied forces so that when the crack Russian troops came through, they would have an easier time of it. At least that was the theory. So that's kind of where North Korea sits with China. Kind of that same thing. Now, they do have nuclear weapons, obviously. They're not the best, and they're certainly not capable of going on a nose cone of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Not at this point, even though they have the missile technology. And guess who gave that to them? Not just Iran. There's this thing a few years ago about Iran sending, secrets to North Korea. But in the mid-1990s, the United States government, Clinton specifically, gave this information to China and North Korea. We shoot ourselves in the foot all the time, and those things are never accidents. This is all about, planning nations against each other and getting power and control and all that stuff. So it's never what it appears. But getting back to North Korea, they still are formidable, okay? They can do a lot of damage. Their conventional forces if they have any other nuclear weapons, they could certainly set them off in the field. I don't think they have the capability to load them in artillery shells or missiles at this point. Where the danger comes for the United States, not just in battles in that area, but in unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare in the United States. If they have sleeper agents here, now, you know, for years the U.S. has been on guard on this. And you got to understand that, you know, our intelligence would understand all of these different connections that they'd have. But that doesn't preclude some things happening, especially right now with the administration the way it is. A war with North Korea and potentially China getting involved, drawing in Japan, you know, the United Nations and all that. And I don't know how big it will actually get. Right now it's just saber rattling. They're probably trying to get something for themselves. I don't really know in North Korea. But you know, that leader up there, like I said, he's a little pimp. He's a little disgusting pile of cow manure, like a lot of leaders are these days. It seems like you can't find one that isn't, but he's particularly bad. And what they think about North Korea and China, the elites, is that that's the model. So where am I going with that? What I'm saying is this, that North Korea could be used to frighten the American people into submitting more to authority. I'm not doing that. It's kids on a trampoline over there. They want me to wave at them, so I'll do that. Now, war is used especially during times of financial problems, because when there's a financial meltdown, then the people, when they get their attention turned to the war, they forget about what the other hand is doing on this side. And it gets their mind off those things. Nations use war to settle their debt. In other words, to refinance their debt. And we're in a big bunch of debt now, as most Western nations are, and Japan as well. I'm probably getting too involved here, but there's a lot of things that could happen. Unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, strikes inside the United States, probably not going to happen, but with the government the way it is, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they claim it, okay? There's, again, a reason to declare martial law. They could also say, oh, you know what, North Korea and Al-Qaeda, they're allies, and, you know, we've got these right-wing extremists, not true, of course, who would go in with Al-Qaeda in North Korea and cause problems and disruptions and kill people and all that. Don't believe that if you hear it. I don't believe it, and I never will. I don't believe Americans will hurt other Americans, not regular working people. Bombing, you know, federal buildings or whatever, well, what's the military target going to gain there? If they're in cahoots with North Korea, you really think they're going to do that? You know, if they do, then it's not military doing that or militarily trained people. That's just the way it is. All right, so what do you do in all this? I don't know if there could be a nuclear exchange in the Korean Peninsula. I don't know that. Certainly possibility. So, you know, the same thing I always say, food, water, you know, get some protection, you know, those kinds of things. It just makes sense. You know, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, especially the people I love, okay? But that goes for anyone. You know, life is too precious for these nations to do this stuff. But, you know, even our country, you know, we do all these things and hurt our own people so the state can, you know, keep its power. Well, I'm philosophizing again now. Let's move on. Just be aware that this North Korea thing could get kind of nasty, not only in a conventional and maybe possibly even a nuclear, chemical, or biological level over there, but maybe, you know, some type of unconventional thing here. Just stay on your toes. All right. I want to talk a little bit about Senator Elizabeth Warren. Here, she was in the news here a while back where she had bank regulators, along with a lot of other people in the Senate, by the way. But she was the one asking the hard questions. And the one that was really the good one was, why haven't you talked to the regulators? Why haven't you prosecuted any of these too big to fail banks? And nobody could give an answer. Well, you know, we couldn't do it because of this, or we didn't think it was good because of this, or whatever. And she'd say it again, why don't you prosecute the big banks? No, no, no. And of course, they've stolen billions of dollars. They did the whole mortgage bubble thing, the derivatives bubble. You know, the Federal Reserve now is giving them $85 billion a month, maybe even more. You know, and they're still doing these things all around the world, much less here. You spit on the sidewalk, you know, you get, and she even made this point, Senator Warren said, you know, I'm really concerned here. These people have done these hideous crimes, and yet our states and local governments and even the feds are going after little people for idiotic little offenses and throwing the book at them. Hey, that's tyranny. That's exactly how it works. The big guys get exempt, the little guys are crushed. Ever hear feudalism? That's what this is. So she recognized it. So she brought that up. Now, bring it up to date a little bit more. Eric Holder with the HSBC thing, if you've been following that. Wachovia, they're laundering billions of dollars, stealing billions of dollars. And they're not the only ones. And he says, well, I'm not really talking about HSBC. Well, the reason why is because he's afraid of them. He even says that. I can't prosecute them. They're too big for me to go after. In other words, I'm scared of them. Our government is afraid of the big banks. That should tell you something right there. The regulators under Warren, that's one thing, you know. But the Attorney General of the United States, working under authority of the President of the United States, afraid, and he didn't use the word afraid, but that's what it is if you read between the lines. They're too big, I can't go after them. It's too hard, it's too dangerous. They'll come after you for a little thing and throw the book at you. They're not going to go after these guys. Remember I said they have big financial interests backing them up to do all these things that they're doing? All right. So what do we need to do there? Again, try to pull away as much as you can. This thing is just going to keep deteriorating, everyone. You know, it's not going to get any better. Forbes Magazine finally came out today and admitted that, yes, you know, what is this going on, U.S. government? You know, you're buying these armored vehicles for DHS. You've let them buy 1.6 billion rounds. Actually, it's 2 billion, but they're using an older figure. You're buying all these weapons. You know, we need to have a national dialogue on this. What's going on here? Finally, because, you know, Media Matters out of the White House, CNBC, you know, we just saw a clip the other day with Chris Matthews, you know, that we're making these accusations that are totally without merit. We're delusional, we're liars, we're deceivers. No. Forbes finally had to address it. And anybody who understands what's going on here, even if it doesn't fit their agenda, they better speak up because this is going to come back on them. And that's the situation here. So Forbes brought this out. We're vindicated, all right? This is for real. Now the government, the DHS said, well, we wanted to take advantage of the price, so we bought it in bulk. And I said, no. You don't do that. In the military and law enforcement, you rotate ammunition, and I've had some discussions with some friends about how long ammunition will last, and I know it can last indefinitely depending upon the storage circumstances. But government regulations usually require that it be rotated on a specific time basis. So to have 30 billion rounds of ammunition, if you used, you know, 1,000 rounds per officer for training, it'd last the next 30 years. So it's not for training, okay? There's something more going on here. They're hollow point bullets. You don't usually train with those. I hear some people say, well, you don't train with hollow points. Well, sometimes you do. So that's not the issue. It's the number. Sniper rounds, you know, things like this. So the fact of the matter is these large purchases are here, and they're not to repel the North Koreans or the Chinese, okay? Or illegals from the South, or Al-Qaeda. If you look at the whole picture, and I've shown you this before, if you take all this information and pull it in, it's for the standard American citizen who is conservative, a gun owner, a returning vet, independent-minded, thinks central government should be small, in other words, a constitutionalist, appreciates George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Okay? That's really what this is about. Remember the MIAC report. Remember what we talked about with the Southern Poverty Law Center. Actually being the front for the DOJ, giving them the excuses to do these things to us. Okay? And I could go on and on and on, and I won't. Just prepare, everybody. Just be aware these things are going on. I don't know how much longer I'll be doing this for lots of reasons. But just know that I've done all of this because I care about your lives, about the lives of your families, your children, your prosperity. And it's only a little bit, but it's all I can. All right? Hey, thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And hopefully we'll get to see you again. Bye.